Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Practo English. My name is AJ, and today, I will teach you how to improve your spoken English at home on your own. Whenever you look online to find out the top tips for improving your spoken English, the number one tip is always to talk to native speakers. Talk to speakers of English and practice conversation. However, that just isn't a realistic possibility for all of us. I know that many of you find yourselves in situations where conversing with native speakers or speakers of English in general just isn't an option. It's not widely available. Sometimes it has to do with money. You don't have the finances available to do that. It could be a confidence thing where you don't feel ready to speak to people yet and want to practice a little bit on your own first. It could just be that you don't know where to start. So, I've got lots of tips in today's video, and I hope to help every one of you as always. Right. Let's start with tip number 1. This tip is to learn full phrases, not just individual vocabulary words. Now, there is a place for studying individual vocabulary words. That helped me a lot with my own learning journey when I was learning Spanish. But if you are particularly focused on improving your spoken English, then try learning entire phrases. When we say a word on its own, we say it in a very flat way like amazed. When I say that word as part of a sentence, I was amazed, it has a different tone, some inflection, some emphasis, and more stress. Listen to speakers of English when you're watching TV, a YouTube video, or listening to the radio. Whatever you're doing to immerse yourself in English, try and pick up on those individual phrases and work out where in the phrase they're pushing the pitch up or saying it slightly more loudly. Pause it if you can and imitate it. It's going to help you sound really natural when you speak English. Another part of this is if you do pick up on an individual vocabulary word that you want to remember, make sure you also include an example of it used in a sentence as well. That's why, with the majority of my vocabulary videos, I always include an example. If you write it down, make little notes and dashes to try and remember how the speaker said it. Tip number 3. Let's go back to analyzing and listening to what speakers of English say and how they say it. But I'm not talking about pronunciation and tone of voice this time. This time, I want to look at what they say grammatically. I know that grammar and spoken English don't tend to go hand in hand, but I think it's important here. Now, let me make this clear. I do not think that learning grammar is the most important part of learning a language at all. You would never teach a baby grammar, yet they grow up to be fluent in a language. But you need to bear in mind that a baby is immersed the entire time. Lots of people say, learn English like a baby. But what they don't bear in mind is that babies are immersed in English, or their mother tongue, the entire time. They have the most wonderful opportunity to pick up on all the spoken English, all the grammar, and all the vocabulary without even realizing it. Bless them. Even then, it takes them a couple of years to speak fluently. Yes, of course, their brains are still developing. But the point I want to make is there is a place for grammar, but it's not the be-all and end-all. I really don't see the value in going through a grammar book cover to cover. I really don't see the value in that, and it's something that I have never done in my own language learning journey. What I did do was essentially fill in the gaps. I was constantly on the lookout for holes or gaps in my grammar knowledge. I think you should go through time filling those gaps bit by bit rather than approaching grammar as this big textbook that you have to work through. It goes back to looking at full phrases again. Look at those phrases. Is there something that you can't explain or that doesn't sound right to you in your head? That should be the topic that you research. That should be the topic that you bring to the table with your conversation partner, your English teacher, or you search on an online forum. There are some amazing language forums with some really enthusiastic teachers who seem to give up their time for free. I can't believe the quality of answers that I get from language forums. I doubt grammar all the time. I'm constantly looking it up. This brings me to tip number 4, which is don't let anything go. Don't drop anything. I know the feeling. You hear a word or a phrase that you don't understand, and you think, oh, I can't be bothered. I'll remember it and do it later. You won't. 9 times out of 10, you will not remember it. It's like when you come up with a perfect tune and think, oh, I'll remember that tomorrow. How could I ever forget something like this? And then you just can't. The next day it's gone. It's lost, potentially forever. Every time you have a doubt, don't let it escape you. Just don't let it escape. Write it down immediately. If you can't write it down because you don't know how it's spelled, use the recording voice notes function on your phone. If you can't see a teacher every single week, save up all of these doubts and book 1 hour a month and see how many of those doubts you can clear up with them in that session. But please, look into my eyes and tell me, AJ, I will not let my next doubt go. But don't stress yourself out at the same time. You have to take everything with a pinch of salt. You've got to make it work for you. But I find if I come up with a fantastic video idea and I don't write it down immediately, that video will never be made. And it's the same with your grammar and vocabulary doubts. Let's move on to number 5. The previous tips were more about theory. Now, I'm going to talk about putting it into practice. When I was learning Spanish, living in Spain, and conversing with lots of Spaniards, there was one topic that at first caused me a lot of anxiety. And then over time, it caused me a lot of joy and excitement. I just loved it, and that is telling anecdotes and telling stories, especially funny ones. I really think there is no better feeling than making someone laugh in the language that you're learning. It's such a good feeling. There are very few people in this world who can just launch into a story and have everyone engaged and interested. Some people are blessed with this skill. I am not one of them. If I want to tell a good story, I have to prepare it in advance and have it up my sleeve. Have it ready. I have to do this in English, let alone in another language. If you want to feel funny, interesting, and engaging, I really urge you to practice and sort of perfect your anecdotes and your personal stories, things that you are going to want to tell to lots of different people. I have maybe 5 or 6 entertaining stories that I have ready in case there's a gap in the conversation. And if I meet someone new, my poor friends have probably heard these stories 20 times each. I encourage you to write your stories down. Try and do the best job you can of correcting the grammar, making sure it flows, and then potentially bringing it to a speaker of English to correct for you. Stories don't have to be perfect when you tell them. It looks weird and sounds weird when you read them out like a robot. On your own at home, practice the story. Read it aloud a couple of times, then have a go reading it with no prompts. If you have this preparation, you'll feel so much better when you finally talk to another speaker of English. Great topics you could use are funny mistakes that you've made in English. I know that I always love hearing my students laugh about the mistakes they've made. It shows that you're a really chilled and funny person, and it's entertaining for me to hear. In the UK, we love self-deprecating humor, which shows that you can laugh at yourself. You could almost mock yourself and put yourself down. We love that. We also love irony. I've actually created an entire video on British humor. I'll put it in the description box. It's called British Humor Explained with Examples, which sounds like the least fun video ever, but I think it might be able to help you. So, I hope that's clear. Practice your anecdotes, practice your stories, and even if your goal is not to be funny, practice the things that you know you will have to repeat again and again. How did you end up in your job? What were your school days like? How did you meet your partner? Practice those stories so that they just roll off the tongue. It might seem like cheating, but if it is, then I'm a cheat because that's what I do. Number 6 is to listen to Chatty podcasts. There has been a podcast revolution all across the world, especially in the UK. We absolutely love podcasts, and there are a lot of people who aren't necessarily famous already starting podcasts with their friends, and they just chat. This is the perfect spoken English improvement opportunity. Finally, you get to eavesdrop. You get to listen in on other people's conversations. This is something that I absolutely love. You might not have the opportunity to be in a conversation with lots of English speakers. Even if you did, it might be too nuanced or fast-paced for you to understand and participate in. Well, loads of lovely people have recorded their chatty conversations, and you can pause them, you can check their transcripts if they have one. People who add transcripts to podcasts are the best. These chatty podcasts really fill a void. Even though I don't have a big group of male friends, I feel that I miss out sometimes on the gossip and talking about girl stuff. But I've got a couple of podcasts that I listen to, and they fill that gap for me, as sad as that might sound. I hope you can relate to that when it comes to learning spoken English and practicing your conversation. Stop them, start them, slow them down, replay them. You can do whatever you want with them, but they are a fantastic learning tool for you. There are so many with so many different niches. One really good place to start is to look at the UK charts for podcasts, especially for episodes. That gives a really good vibe on what's good and what's not. If you're interested in football, the Peter Crouch podcast is meant to be absolutely fantastic, with a wide variety of accents. There are lots of comedy podcasts like No Such Thing as a Fish. There are quite a few with rude names that I don't want to put on my channel. Do you know what? I'm going to list them in the description box. If you have any other chatty podcast recommendations, please put them in the comments section. We can all learn from each other, and hopefully you can recommend a good way to procrastinate. Number 7. Make sure you always have good topics to talk about. When we talk to people, we often talk about current affairs. A lot of the current affairs are very depressing, and most people don't want to talk about how terrible the year has been. So, I have some solutions for you. I was feeling really down last year from about June onwards, and I actually got to the point of despair where I thought the world was just an awful place. One of my friends sent me a newspaper called The Happy Newspaper. This wonderful girl called Emily Coxhead wrote it, and this opened my eyes to the world of positive news. I absolutely love these, and they are the most amazing tools for creating really good, positive conversations. Newspapers have always been teachers' favorite tools for learning English and creating dialogue and inciting conversation. And what better than to have a newspaper that is just full of the best stories of the quarter? I now have 2 Happy News subscriptions. One is called Positive News, and one is called Happy News. They're both written in different ways, so there's not too much overlap. They both come out every 3 months, and I like to get a physical copy. They're very inexpensive. I highly recommend them for a fantastic mood boost, something you can pick up and then use to talk about with people. I've checked for you, and they both offer worldwide delivery. I think the most wonderful English-speaking club idea would be the Happy News Speaking Club or something like that. If you could get a group of people to meet on Zoom every quarter and discuss your favorite stories from these newspapers, I would want to join them. Whenever I create a video about English speaking, I look at my comment section, and there are just so many people who are desperate to practice with other people. If you want to join a conversation club and you can't find one, create one. Just create one. Take something like positive news or happy news as a prompt. It's not hard to run, and it would be so much fun. My last point is number 8, and it is chill out. No, it's don't stress. And in particular, don't stress about your accent. Accents can, unfortunately, be such a massive source of shame. So, when you're looking to improve your pronunciation, I want you to do exactly that. Look at improving your pronunciation. Please, just don't stress yourself out by trying to reduce or get rid of your accent unless it's something you really want to do. There's just no point. I understand the charm of it. When I was learning Spanish, and you've got to understand I was in a fantastic position. I was going out with a Spanish guy, living with a Spanish family. I really had all the opportunities there for me, and it was so amazing when I was mistaken for a native speaker from time to time. So I do understand the charm, and there are loads of options for people who do want to achieve that. But just try and analyze why you're doing that. In general, the most important thing is improving your pronunciation to speak understandably and clearly. You want to speak so that other people can understand you easily. If learning about other accents and mimicking other accents is something that you really enjoy and it brings you a lot of pleasure, then by all means, do that. But if it's stressing you out or making you feel bad about yourself, don't do that. It's a really hard thing to do. An example of how unimportant accents are nowadays is my experience with Google. I spent a lot of time with people who work at Google and YouTube. I visited lots of Google offices in different locations. Such a high percentage of the people who work in this massive, amazing company with fantastic salaries have very strong, very clearly non-native accents. Has it affected them? No. Does it affect what I think of them? Yes, it makes me really impressed that they speak another language to such a high standard every day in their workplace. Wow. I don't know. That's food for thought. I'm sure each of you will have your own individual opinion on what's important and what's right for you. I just wanted to put it out there because I have seen some comments that have made me sad about people trying to lose a bit of their identity, and that's what an accent is. It's a part of your identity. Right. I think that brings us to the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. It's got the full transcript plus some key vocabulary. If you'd like to improve your listening skills and expand your vocabulary even further, I highly recommend my channel where I upload a lot of videos in the English countryside. Every single video is fully subtitled, so it's specifically designed with English learners in mind. Don't forget to connect with me on all of my social media. I will see you soon for another lesson. I feel like my voice is lower today. Problems? Give the feedback. Did I say that right? But please look into my eyes and tell me. Ajay, sorry. Please look into my eyes right now and tell me. Will you do that? Okay, thank you very much. Oh, that's perfect. Amazing. Okay, even if you did, it would probably be, you can actually, Peter Crouch. Peter Crouch is his name. Peter Crouch. Yeah. It is very strong. There has been a podcast revelation. So if you love this video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.